So I am recording this video prior to the Brighton game, but for the purposes of this video, let's assume that Manchester United go on a pretty decent run from now to the new year, and going into 2026 we're in touching distance of the top of the table, maintaining the current points distance from Arsenal at the top, maybe 5 to 7 points. Going into the January transfer window, who can Manchester United sign to give us that edge in the title race and potentially pull off a surprise? Now of course, if the assumptions in this video did actually take place in reality, would Ineos take the bull by the horns and actually look to take some of the summer budget and spend it in January in order to take advantage of a very unique opportunity that United would have? Because just think back to the last time that either Manchester City or Liverpool didn't win the title. It was in 16-17 with Conte and Chelsea, when they didn't have any European football, and even the previous season was 15-16 with Leicester, who once again were not playing in Europe that particular season. And so the advantage this brings, not just in terms of the latter half of the season, where teams like Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City will have to prepare and play Champions League games midweek, only really having a few days to train and recover for those Premier League games, but also just in terms of the fatigue and injuries that build up over the course of the season. But also because if you look at the likely title contenders, Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester City, they're probably going to be playing maybe 10 to 15 more games just in the first half of the season, which could end up being maybe 25 to 30 more throughout the course of the whole campaign. And so in this scenario, what Ineos should be doing is looking to take advantage of a very unique situation. Because in reality, if United were to go out in January and strengthen the squad, specifically the starting 11, being prepared to take some of the summer transfer targets and do them 6 months earlier in January, then I do think this could be enough to make up that points differential, taking advantage of any inconsistencies that occur with Arsenal, Manchester City or Liverpool, in order to pull off a title surprise, just as the likes of Leicester and Chelsea did almost a decade ago. But who would be the 3 signings that I would look to make in January? Not only who would be realistic and available, but also transfer fees that could be facilitated by selling existing members of the squad. Well, before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got a variety of different 25-26 jerseys, including the new Manchester United shirts for this season, as well as other club and international sides as well, available from just $15. If you spend over $50, you will get free shipping, and they've also got a variety of unique retro shirts as well. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you will get a discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comments section below. So in terms of the positions that would need improving, in order to even mount a title challenge, let alone win the actual title, as I said at the start of the summer, when discussing which positions did need improving, left wing back is a must, as is central midfield. And the 2 players that I would prioritise in those positions are players that I have spoken about recently, Federico Di Marco at left wing back from Inter Milan, and Ederson from Atalanta. Now I have said in previous videos that Ederson could be a bargain in the summer, because come that point he'll only have 1 year left on his Atalanta contract, significantly reducing any sort of leverage that they would have in negotiations. However, January they may be able to charge a bit more, and so rather than the £30 million that I anticipated United would be able to get him for come the summer, it may be slightly higher, 35, even as much as 40. However, in the grand scheme of things, because Ederson would be a signing that I would make anyway, alongside the added advantage that it would give us in the second half of the season, I think £40 million for Ederson would definitely be a deal that I would do. And to be honest, you could easily finance it just by selling Ugarte, who surely brings in £30 to £35 million, even in January. But alongside Ugarte, in terms of players that could bring in funds to reinvest in central midfield, you've also got Kobbie Mainoo. See, if Amorim is going to stay going into next season, I think you have to sell Mainoo in the summer anyway, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, effectively 2, because we have got the option of a year extension, and so this would be the prime point to sell him, or you've at least got to give him an extension, but he's going to demand a big salary, and at that point are United willing to give a player like Mainoo, who's not really likely to be a starter anytime soon, a significant salary increase? And so if you are going to sell him in the summer, you might as well try to sell him in January. If you sold Ugarte and brought in Ederson, you could then also maybe sell Mainoo and bring in one of Walton or Baleba. Even though it's unlikely that both of those two players would be available in January, I do think that there's a good chance that if United were to come in with maybe an £80 to £85 million bid for one of Walton or Baleba, they could manage to get them in January. Now that's probably an outside bet, but even if we just focus on Ederson coming in for Agate and Mainu staying, there's still a massive improvement for United's midfield. Add on to this DeMarco, and I think there's a serious argument to be made that United's starting 11 is at the very least on the same level as the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City, particularly once you also factor in the lack of European football, giving us a much greater time for recovery and specific match training going into the most vital part of the season. Going from Casemiro alongside Bruno Fernandes in the midfield double pivot and Dorgu or Dalot at left wing back, to Ederson alongside Bruno Fernandes alongside DeMarco at left wing back significantly improves Manchester United in multiple different phases of play, both in and out of possession. But to add on to this, whilst Ederson and DeMarco would come in and improve United's starting 11, my third signing is more of a wildcard option who would improve United off of the bench, offering a very specific attribute to a world-class level that could be the difference between United drawing and winning certain games, if Amorim could set up the side tactically in order to get the best out of him. And I'm going to tell you who that player is towards the end of the video, but first, how would DeMarco and Ederson improve United both in and out of possession? Well, first of all, fairly obviously, when it comes to end product in the final third, from that left-hand side, DeMarco coming in ahead of Dorgu and Dalot will completely change Manchester United's attack. Firstly, his crossing from deeper positions is far better than both of those, able to get the ball out of his feet in deep positions on the flank and putting curling in-swinging crosses into the exact position where Sesko wants to attack. And when you've got a striker who's as aerially dominant as Benjamin Sesko, it's almost criminal to not have an elite level crosser from both sides. But it's not just his crossing from deeper positions. When it comes to his ball control, receiving possession from long switches of play, think Calhanoglu or Barella at Inter Milan, switch now with either Mason Mount or Bruno Fernandes, DeMarco is just so much better than either Dorgu or Dalot when it comes to getting the ball under control and being able to shift the ball quickly to then put in a cross or maybe work an angle to play a 1-2 and move in behind his fullback to then get into a low crossing position to create via a ground pass across a 6-yard box or a cut back towards the penalty spot or the edge of the box. But also factoring out chance creation when it comes to actually finishing in and around the box, DeMarco could provide United with 2 or 3 goals that wouldn't be possible from either Dorgu or Dalot. With Ederson in midfield over Casemiro, the obvious benefit comes from his ball carrying. When it comes to ball progression, Casemiro's lack of athleticism and speed across the ground makes him heavily reliant on his passing. However, Ederson can do both. Statistically, in terms of his progressive passing output from last season at Atalanta, he actually looks better passing-wise than he does from his carrying, but from the eye test you can definitely see the difference between a player like Ederson and Casemiro, and that's that Ederson just has the ability to eat up ground when it's presented, having the combination of physicality and pace that makes him a powerful ball carrier through the centre of the pitch. And combine this with his robust ball-winning ability, reading of the game and speed across the ground over short and longer distances, Ederson would massively improve Manchester United's ability to regain possession via loose or second balls, which is definitely going to be a key feature of Manchester United's game throughout the rest of the season, just because of how direct Amorim is going from the build-up phase, meaning there's going to be a greater frequency of turnovers, and so having a player like Ederson can be the difference between opposition sides regaining possession and sustaining pressure, and United able to win 50-50s or 60-40s before then playing a quick forward pass into the likes of Cunha, Sesko or Mbumo, setting up a dangerous quick transitional opportunity that can win United games simply through Mbumo's pace in behind or Cunha's ball carrying and dribbling ability into dangerous areas. Now, as a wildcard option in January, considering that Joshua Zirkzee does look likely to leave Manchester United in January if not the summer, he could either be loaned out or sold permanently for a fee that would represent a deal in the region of 30 to 32 or 33 million pounds permanently when he does eventually make the move, even if it is an initial 6-month loan deal. And using the funds from the Zirkzee deal, I would go and get in the Siri from Fenerbahce, who could also be signed on a similar loan to permanent deal, even with Joshua Zirkzee going the other way away to Fenerbahce, maybe on a 6 to 18 month loan deal, and in the series coming to Manchester United over the same period, with options to buy inserted in both those loan deals. But Xerxes could also be sold to someone like AC Milan or Inter Milan in Serie A, and then that money could be used to bring in En-Nesyri from Fenerbahce, either on a loan with an option or even an obligation to buy, or for a permanent deal depending on what happens with Xerxes, maybe representing around 70 to 80% of any deal that would see Xerxes leave. But why exactly would I trade a false 9 centre forward like Joshua Xerxes, who is only 24 years old, for a 28-year-old target man like Yusuf En-Nesyri? Well, as I said in a video that I made over the summer, I think Amorim could use En-Nesyri's frankly world-class aerial ability, which can be seen by his statistical output last season and his headed goal collection over the past few seasons, almost as a cheat code, just like Arsenal have been doing with Gabriel from set pieces, alongside DeMarco's crossing ability, to generate high-value goal-scoring opportunities against teams that sit deep and compact and are willing to drop off into their own defensive third. And not only are you generating those chances via DeMarco's crossing ability, but you've also got one of the best headerers in world football inside the box, alongside another aerially dominant striker like Benjamin Sesko. See, when United are chasing a goal, maybe in the last 25 to 30 minutes of a game, Amorim can weaponise a front two of En-Nesyri and Sesko by turning the last half hour of the game into set-piece football in open play, using a 3-2 rest defence with Ederson screening in front of two centre-backs, with DeMarco or Luke Shaw holding the width on the left, and Boomer mirrors the same on the right side, whilst your other quality crossers such as either Bruno Fernandes or Mason Mount can also look to pick up positions where they can firstly occupy half-space positions in order to pin the fullbacks when the play is central, before then looking to move into these narrow crossing positions, either in-swinging on the left or out-swinging on the right when the play is being worked down the channel. And in these type of game states, when United are chasing a goal, after maybe 60 to 65 minutes, Amorim could also authorise Yoro De Ligt or Maguire to continue their vertical movement into the box when United are attacking, giving United 3 aerially dominant offensive players inside of the box from crossing positions, with the likes of DeMarco and Mbeumo, as well as the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount and Luke Shaw, depending on who's on the pitch at the time, to pick up high quality crossing positions, either deep and narrow, deep and wide, or closer to the byline, looking to create opportunities for the likes of En-Nesyri, Sesko and one of the centre-backs inside of the box. And whilst DeMarco would provide the crossing ability from the channels, Ederson could be sitting in the rest defence, being one of the best recovery defenders in the world, able to utilise his acceleration, pace and power to move across into the channels in order to break up opposition counter-attacks, whilst also being highly adept positionally when he's asked to fill in as a centre-back in the back line as well. So I may do a follow-up video going into further detail about how these 3 players could be used, but I still think that if United could sign 2 or even all 3 of these players in January, selling on players like Agate and Xerxes, then United could have a serious chance of providing an upset in the title race, given how unpredictable this season has currently been. So let me know what you think of my analysis and my 3 transfer suggestions for January in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. I'll leave a link in the description and in the comment section below, and I'll also leave my Patreon linked on the end screen now as well.